Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Nashville. Paul Shaughnessy here. Producer Megan on the sticks. Cody Saftic on the line. This episode of the Dogger Pass podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. I owe you a shoey, Cody.
Ooh.
What a close decision. And we were talking about it just before we came online. It's just like, Jan actually did pretty well, even in the striking exchanges in round 3, but he looked so tired. That body language was so bad that it's like, I think the 2 of the 3 refs were kind of like, those punches can't mean anything because the guy looks like he's going to die. But he looked like he was going to die like 7.5 minutes into the fight. And he still fought pretty valiantly, you know. Landed some decent strikes, got the takedown with 40 seconds left. I ended up betting it right as soon as he got that takedown with like 40 seconds left. There was like plus 240. I'm like, this decision could get greasy. So I lost a little bit of money on the fight. But I didn't invest pre-fight. Save my money. My only bet was the shoey bet. You had a hell of a week though. You had Semmelsberger was the only guy who shat in the apple pie.
Had a good first round.
Otherwise, you're dancing. Otherwise, you are
dancing. Yeah, I really want to hit the PRP for the fans, obviously, but top 3 lines, all good to me, all good to me. So I'm not one to complain, but yeah, man, if the ref stops it or if he doesn't gas out or I don't know, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Not going to stay in the past. We're going to move on. I'll admit, though, man, last week I got Roman Kopylov, and as he's about to fight, now you're second questioning everything. You're like, oh, man, why did I go so high on Kopylov? And then gets rocked at the end of the first round. Looked good, then got rocked at the end of the first round, comes back and wins. Then we were high up on Gabriel Bonfim. I thought he was going to roll. He did. But Bobby Green, right? We're high up on Bobby Green. I'm starting to second guess it as the fight nears. Gets dropped by Tony Ferguson in the first round. Comes back and wins. Like, you're always second guessing it as the pressure amounts. So now we get to Alex Pereira, like you said. And I mean, I guess you could hedge out at that point. You absolutely could have hedged out of the bottom tickets. But we had him on the second line, so we needed it. And after the first round, same thing. It's just like you're ripping up the ticket. If you're at the racetrack, you would just ripped up the ticket and walked away, right? But yeah, Pereira fights valiantly, comes back, wins the second. Third round, super subjective. Striking was actually fairly even, but you and I were discussing it before the show. Body language. Body language is a big part of it. At the end of the day, judges are human beings. And when you see one guy curled over, huffing and puffing, trying to avoid it, but fight strategically and do well, and the other guy's kind of also huffing and puffing, coming forward, throwing bombs-ish, you know, I don't know. Subjective nature. This card, talking about subjectivity, 12 fights on the card right now. I can make a very strong argument for 10 of the underdogs. The 2 that I can't will likely win. This is going to be dog city, man. Absolute dog city. Tons of plus money to be had, but very tricky for parlays.
100%. All right. Over the lips, past the gums, look at stomach. Here it comes.
Paul Shag with the little rubber boot. Little rubber boot, Paul.
Haters don't like it. They don't like the fact that I'm drinking out of something. You know, you can never make everybody happy, Cody. People used to say that's disgusting. You're going to get sick. Then you switch the boot to something sanitary. And then now they're saying that like it's really soft and I should be, you know, drinking out of something like Cody does that has like horse manure on it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. All I know is that we got 12 fights to break down. UFC Nashville. Main event, we got Cory Sandhagen taking on Rob Font. Cory Sandhagen is a minus 350 favorite. Font can be had for plus 285. Who you got?
Yeah, so I'm pretty big on when you talk about creating the perfect fighter, and if it was a video game and you could add all these attributes, Rob Font's striking is as good as anybody's striking. It's elite level striking. And the numbers that he puts up, Paul, absolutely sickening. His fight with Cody Garbrandt, he lands 176. His fight with Jose Aldo, very next fight, 149. His fight with Marlon Vera, very next fight, 271 significant strikes landed. And then he lost his last 2 fights, so people kind of wrote him off. Not me. We bet him against Adrian Yanez, plus money underdog, if you can believe that. And he starches them. He's very elite in that regard. Takedown defense, see, that's a bit of a question to me. Because Jose Aldo, Marlon Vera, Cody Garbrandt, well, actually not Cody Garbrandt, but Adrian Yanez, Marlon Vera, Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes. None of these guys wanted to take him down. The guys that did want to take him down succeeded in doing so. Ricky Simone racked up some solid takedowns against him. Cody Garbrandt, who has a bit of a wrestling background, he was a state champion back in high school in Ohio, but certainly not one guy that you would consider like an elite level wrestler by any stretch, is able to get him down 3 times. What Font's able to do to those guys, get back up, make them work, because he's got sickening volume. Now, here's his other thing. Never been knocked out in his career, right? However, been dropped 5 times in the fights with Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. 3 times against Vera, twice against Jose Aldo. And in both of those fights, he's outstriking his opponent. He's racking up those numbers. It's that he's getting dropped. As you said with the body language, that's what's happening to him. He can put up good numbers, have a good round, use that footwork, use that jab. His jab is magnificent. His speed, his footwork, even at 34 years old, all good. But that big shot lands and he kind of does the stanky leg. You know, that big shot lands and he falls down temporarily. It's hard to get a round back when you're doing that. So if this is just a straight up kickboxing match, striking affair, Rob Font can hold his own with anybody. Sandhagen's elusive. He's got a nasty jab on him too, but Font would be in it. Thing is, it's an MMA fight. And I feel like Sandhagen, since the Aljamain fight, has spent a lot of time working on his offensive wrestling. You saw in his last fight, go out there against Marlon Vera, pretty much just utilize his wrestling, take him down, neutralize him for most parts. I think his ability to strike with Font in spots and then mix in those takedowns in spots should be that blend that gets him the win. The one little thing that would also tip my hat in his favor is that he's had a full camp, right? Not only has he had a full camp, he's had a full camp getting ready for Umar Nurmagomedov. So he would be in fine shape. And I would imagine that the vast majority of this camp has been wrestling. How could it not be, right? So he's going to be in really good shape. He's going to be good to go. Font, meanwhile, Font can put up sickening numbers. Font can hold his own. Font can make this one hell of a main event for the Nashville crowd, but he's on short notice. So is he at his best? Probably not. Is Sandhagen at his best? You would think close to. So the blend of the striking with the takedowns, and on top of that, the full fight camp, just it's enough for me to go Cory Sandhagen. But this is a killer main event, and you can see it being a close, tightly contested striking affair for 15 or for 25.
Yeah, I mean the short notice for Font, the fact that he got dropped 5 times in between the Vera and the Aldo fights. I took Sandhagen by knockout plus 225. That's the only bet it's the only bet I've made so far. It's just like I kind of think he rushed into this spot. Props to him for taking it. But yeah, you cannot get knocked down that many times. Eventually, a ref just steps in and doesn't let you continue. Like he's been pretty fortunate to be allowed to continue in a bunch of those spots. And I feel like at that price, yeah, plus 200 or above, I feel like it's pretty ripe for the picking. So that's where I put my money on this main event. I respect both of these guys immensely, don't get me wrong. But yeah, Font, short notice. Chin has been leaving him a little bit. He hasn't been knocked out yet, but it's like we've seen signs that it can be exploited. And I mean, we've seen with Sandhagen, it's like the guy can throw some like really dynamic strikes to put you out of your element. So, you know, if he lands a flying knee early on, maybe this ref doesn't let Rob Font, you know, survive. So I just thought at that price it was worth a poke. Minus 350. I mean, if this goes 25 minutes, I can definitely see it being pretty competitive. Rob Font fighting off of the jab. And Sandhagen, like both of these guys would accrue a lot of significant strikes. It may be one of those really, really greasy decisions if it goes the full 25. But I see Sandhagen knocking him out. Yeah, so like even on Prize Picks, I haven't even played it on Prize Picks yet, but like I'm kind of leaning towards the under 120.5 significant strikes. Sandhagen no doubt can get over it. A lot of Rob Font's opponents get well over that number, but I see Sandhagen knocking him out probably in the first 3 rounds, to be perfectly honest. So I'll be adding that to tickets. I haven't added to tickets yet. I have some tickets that I have added, but we'll get there as we break down the show. All right, moving on down, we got Tatiana Suarez taking on Jessica Andrade. Minus 360 for Tatiana Suarez, plus 290 for Andrade. Andrade is going to be dangerous. I mean, you know me. It's like I'm a dog hunter, but within reason, Cody. I could never bet against. And I saw like CLV opportunities for myself early on in the week. I could have had Andrade at like plus 350, plus 340. It's like I couldn't pull the trigger because I think Tatiana Suarez will get those takedowns. Will get those takedowns with ease and probably get a submission. I see a plus 125 out there. I haven't bet it yet, but like that's how I see this fight playing out. Andrade is obviously dangerous on the feet, but there's levels to this game when it comes to the grappling. And even though Tatiana had a pretty rough return from injury against Montana De La Rosa, it's like she's still, bit down on the mouthpiece, was able to get that submission in round 2. It's like if you hang out at range with Andrade, you're going to eat some big shots. I think she will realize the threat that she has in front of her, and there will be no messing around on the feet. Like she will be going for a takedown from the go. So yeah, me, minus 360 is like I rarely ever bet too much on these types of things. If I was forced to make a bet, it would be probably the plus 125 on Suarez by sub. Your thoughts here, bud?
Yeah, first of all, just the simple money line on it factors into the CF dot model that it's right at that tipping point where it's like, ooh, one fight in the last 4 years. Ooh, didn't look that good against Montana De La Rosa. Ooh, probably not going to play it. And then you're talking about what's the likely path to victory? Submission. By the way, I actually agree with you, but plus 125 for a submission prop.
Yeah, it's not that fun.
Also not down with that. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of ways to attack this. It's not a great parlay piece simply because CF dot model, guys, happens all the time. And then beyond that, again, just too wide on the money line. But she is the rightful pick. This is what we're gonna go with. So Tatiana Suarez is Paul's baby, right? She is women's MMA. Islam Makhachev takes everybody down, smeesh. The only other girl that can really wrestle at an elite level in the division is Carla Esparza, who's made an entire career and 2 UFC wins or 2 UFC championship different reigns with her wrestling. Tatiana took her down 9 times. Wasn't even competitive. Her at her best was going to smash the entire division and go on to be some great champion. Unfortunately, your knees can only take so much. So yeah, she's had a lot of issues, a lot of different injuries, and 32 years old, still undefeated, still fresh in terms of fight years, but it's only a matter of how much your knees can take. So looks great against Esparza, looks okay against Nina Nunez. That fight actually went off 15 minutes. She looked a little tired by the end, but again, wrestling is at an elite level. And then the 4-year-long layoff. So to come back against Montana De La Rosa, she does not look good, okay? She struggles to get the takedowns. She relied on 2 head and arm tosses, which if you're not Dricus du Plessis against Robert Whittaker, I don't advise going for those. But again, she doesn't look all that comfortable in there. Striking hasn't gotten a whole lot better, still robotic, tentative to get hit, rushes the takedowns. Unfortunately, very strong still, is able to throw Montana down. Why Montana gave her so much resistance? One, Montana actually has a wrestling base herself and is an okay grappler. But 2, the fight's at 125 pounds. Mm-hmm. So Tatiana's coming off a 4-year-long layoff, and she's also taking a fight at 125 pounds. So I think the ring rust would already be a big issue. Then you compound the taking on a naturally larger woman who also has a bit of a wrestling and grappling base. You're not going to look great. So she did what she had to do. She won the first round, largely smothering up against the cage. And then she won the second round, completing the takedown. Risky move going for the guillotine, pays off, gets the submission. So now she's coming back a lot closer, not a long layoff, back at 115 pounds, full camp for this fight, supposed to take on Verna Jandiroba, right? Good wrestler, good grappler. So I would imagine that's the game plan. That's what you're going to be doing. Verna jumps out and Andrade is like, who you going to call? Jessica Andrade. She'll take any fight, anytime, anywhere, to her credit, but also to her disadvantage because she loses a ton of these short notice fights where she just shows up. She'll fight at 115. She'll fight at 125. She doesn't seem to care, but the weight cuts to 115 are tough for her. And this one's 115, again, on short notice. We'll go back to the Aaron Blanchfield fight. Blanchfield's young, 23 years old, known as a wrestler grappler, had previously struggled in her fight prior to take down a much lesser opponent than Andrade, but came in that fight and her boxing looked mint. Just boxed Andrade up in the first round. Second round, easy takedown, just ducked under, time to counter, ducked under, takes her down. And once she got on top, Paul, it's not competitive. Like Jessica Andrade is a BJJ black belt, and she attempts absolutely nothing. There's no guard retention. She immediately just gets passed into side guard. Or side control. She immediately just gives up her bag, gives up the hook. All of a sudden, she's in a rear naked choke, and she just taps out. Very next fight against Janan knocked out 220 into the first round. Didn't look comfortable. Returned down to 115, and that's her problem. That fight, she looked awful against Jan, and she looked awful against Blanchfield. She looked awesome against Murphy. She looked awesome against Amanda Lemos. Awesome against Calvillo. Awful against Shevchenko. Awesome against Chukagian. There's no real in-between. In fact, one time she was looking awful against Rose Namajunas and still came out looking awesome. So when she's in a full camp and she's at her best and she goes out and performs and finishes opponents inside the distance, which is that John Lineker style forward pressure, boxing, rip to the body, big hooks from the outside, power wrestling, her at her best, yeah, a problem for a lot of people. Her coming in relatively short notice, back down at 115, hasn't looked motivated in a while. The UFC keeps hounding this whole, she's the first female fighter to have 25 UFC fights. Dope. But also tons of burnout effect. And she's only 31 years old, but she's bounced around from 3 different weight classes, fought every division's top 5 challengers and every division's champions, held her own sometimes, won a title at one point, but even at 31, 25 fights in the UFC, she just seemed a little burnt out to me. Tatiana, she wants this, had the full camp, wrestle. Why would you want to stand with Jessica Andrade? It makes no sense. So gas her out by applying that pressure and winning. I would be more tempted to chase the decision prop over the submission prop because it's bigger plus money. But when Andrade don't show up, man, she packs it in quick. So I'm actually going to agree with you. I think the rear naked choke opens itself up sometime late in the second round.
Yeah. I mean, the Blanchfield fight was kind of a big tell. It's like...
She got dominated. It's at 125. She got dominated.
Dominated. I mean, I think I don't know if Tatiana can do what Blanchfield did on the feet is the biggest thing. And you know me, I love Tatiana more than any other YouTube guy running his show on the internet. She even follows me on Twitter. We're not exactly friends. I don't DM her. I'm not like a weirdo creep or anything, but I think from like way back in the weekend? Way back in the day when I was, we were a little bit crazier and I was saying crazy things and talking about how she was going to win the title and yada, yada, yada. She was like, all right, that's a real fan. She's never unfollowed me. So that's my girl. And I think that second round against Blanchfield tells me all I need to know about this fight. It's like, I think if Suarez takes her down, she is going to smother her. It's whether she can get that submission in round 1 or 2, but like I think it's coming. Have to take some shots. You probably have to take a little bit of damage to close distance because Andrade can crack, but the queen is not getting stopped here, Cody, in my humble opinion. Moving on down, we've got Kennedy and Nzechukwu taking on Dustin Jacoby, minus 155 for Kennedy, plus 135 for Dustin Jacoby. Who you got?
Yeah, I'll take a dog poke here at Dustin Jacoby at the slight plus money. Reason being, so Kenny Nzechukwu, you know what? Very, very long, big man, 6'3" with 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. And I've always really been a believer that at some point, especially because he's at a Fortis MMA, some point he's going to figure out how to use that reach. Some point he's going to figure out how to use that distance, and he's going to be an absolute problem because he can generate a ton of power for this division. It's just never materialized, Paul. He looks very uncomfortable in these prolonged striking exchanges. He always allows his opponents to close the distance on him. If they want to walk in the pocket, fine. But he doesn't stand on the outside. He generally likes to force a clinch, use elbows tight little elbows, bust his opponent up, and then he's relying on his wrestling a lot heavy these days. When you look at volume per se, his last 3 fights, the Devin Clark fight, he got hurt bad in the first round. Uppercut from Devin Clark lands, puts him on wobbly legs. Clark just unloads the tank on him, and Kennedy just plays it smart, counters Clark. Such a sloppy first round, and then the second round, Clark's just done, and he puts him away. But not a great performance. Did get rocked early. Didn't look super good in those striking exchanges, especially not against a high-level striker. The Ian Kudalaba fight, again, good knockout from him. Crazy fight against a crazy fighter. But I haven't really been able to see him fight other than I guess you could say his fight with Carlos Ulberg, a spot that he was getting largely outstruck early. and then he just stays with it and comes back a little bit later. But his cardio to me seems a little bit suspect. His volume to me is a little bit suspect. He's forcing these grappling exchanges. He's switched from being a wrestler, from being a striker to being a grappler, I believe. Justin Jacoby, meanwhile, yeah, he's got that glory kickboxing base. He's come to the UFC, and it's mostly sparring type situations. He doesn't seem like he's got a lot of zap anymore. There's not a ton of like fight ending power from him anymore, but he's a great sparring type guy, and he can put up the volume. He's comfortable fighting strikers. His last number of fights, last fight against Azmat Mirzakhanov, Khalil Roundtree, he's in those fights. He should have won the Roundtree fight, who he outlanded 120 to 85, outstruck him in all 3 rounds. Judges didn't agree. But he trains at Denver. He's always had good cardio. He can put up 100 significant strikes. And his takedown defense actually isn't half bad. I think Asmat Mirzakhanov went like 1 for 7 on takedowns against him. He's a big body. He's worked with a lot of high-level wrestlers. And again, if you're going to stand in front of him and spar with him, he's a good guy. He racks up a lot of volume. He's got nasty leg kicks and a good jab. And I think it gets a big, tall opponent against Kennedy. That jab is going to stay in his face. Those low kicks are going to slow him down, immobilize him. Jacoby doesn't, like, his power's not all the way gone, so I think he's got enough that he could rock Kennedy. We've seen Kennedy knocked out by Da Jung with short little elbows, and we've seen him rocked in his last fight in the first round against Devin Clark. So I wouldn't completely outrule a possible Dustin Jacoby knockout, but I more see this thing as like a point style kickboxing match that Jacoby outlands him, lands the low kicks, works him over, and hopefully has the judges side with him.
I mean, every single Jacoby fight is just super, super close, and you never really know what it's going to be scored when it goes to the judges. Outside of the,
so only take him at plus money. Only take him at plus money.
I can understand where you're coming from. In terms of like, I think Kennedy's made some pretty big improvements. Being able to have Danilo Marquez on your back for 2 rounds, it was not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but he cooked the guy, and he showed that like he's got enough grappling to at least survive against a legitimate black belt. In Danilo
Is he
Marquez.
a legitimate black belt? Have you ever looked at him since that fight? Like, his entire career has just been just god awful. Danilo Marquez was a one-trick pony. But anyways, I just looked him up. He actually went on a little winning streak against a 0-0 and a 9-6, and Jorgen De Castro, of course. But yeah. I'll let you keep going. But god damn it, man, he lost the first 2 rounds against Danilo Marquez. That's my trouble with him.
I just think that Kennedy's making like some pretty significant improvements in the grappling. Nobody's really like, you go through like the opponents that Jacoby has faced, and he hasn't really taken on anybody who can grapple for anything. Like Asmat Mirzakhanov, not a grappler, like more of a kickboxer, flashy strikes, that type of thing. He did keep it competitive there. Roundtree doesn't grapple whatsoever. I mean, he knocked him out so fast, but it's like Dong Jung doesn't really grapple by any stretch of the imagination. Michael Shashuk, that guy can't grapple at all, and he's a 185-pounder at this point. Darren Stewart, you go back a few years now, Darren Stewart was able to take him down 2 times. I don't know. I kind of see this fight playing out like Kennedy against Carl Roberson, where he took him down 5 times. He ended up winning by TKO. I see you. It's a small little poke, Cody. You know me, prop degenerate. I'm ever so slightly leaning towards Nzechukwu on the money line, but I see like a plus 950 on Kennedy by sub, and maybe it's because he got a submission against Devin Clark last time out, so it's like recency bias, yada, yada, yada. I'm probably going to take a little small poke on that. I just think Kennedy actually relies on the grappling here, doesn't want to hang out with the guy who was a glory kickboxer for 3 It's not even just like, it's not like Carlos Ulberg, where it's just like, this guy can't go at this pace for 3 rounds. Like, Jacoby can go that pace. I think his game plan is going to be coming in here, mixing the wrestling, and at plus 950, I think it's worth a poke. So Kennedy's going to be the pick, and then Kennedy by sub is like a small little poke. And we'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, it's pretty unlikely at plus 950, but that's where my money's going to be going on this fight. Moving on down, we got Diego Lopes taking on Gavin Tucker. Diego Lopes minus 180 favorite. Gavin Tucker could be had for plus 155. I mean, Gavin Tucker, it's been on for so long. It's getting pretty long in the tooth at this point. I don't really know what to expect from him. What I do know is that Diego Lopes came in, massive underdog against Movsar Evloev. He was throwing up some pretty tricky submissions. Evloev was able to get out because, his last name ends in EV, and the guy's grappling is super, super solid. But it's like, for short notice, the situation that he was in, Diego Lopes put on a pretty good show. I don't know what to expect from Gavin Tucker, so I'm kind of forced against the wall here and kind of go with like what you've seen lately, and that's Diego Lopes wins, maybe Diego Lopes by submission, which is like plus 230. Has my attention. I haven't bet it, but that's kind of how I see this fight playing out. What's your take here?
Yeah, I'm not going to agree. I honestly think this is probably like more of a bias pick for me, but I'm going to go Gavin Tucker, but I could very easily see this just being that PRP underdog type pick because I don't know what to expect out of him. He's been off for a long time. Even prior to this long layoff due to injuries, he just had a lot of injuries. The guy never fought a whole lot on the regional scene in Canada simply because he was always banged up. Maybe got a fight a year every here and there. Eventually makes the UFC, been in the UFC for a long time, and again, hasn't had that many fights. So very talented guy, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, southpaw, nice counter striking at his best. You saw what he did with Billy Quarantillo. He's a smooth operator, very talented fighter. Him at his worst, potentially a little bit chinny. He did see Dan Ige knock him out in his most recent performance, 22 seconds. That's not a great look by any stretch. He's banged up. He's been off for a long time. He's now 37 years old, competing in a division that largely relies on speed, and maybe he's just a tad behind. So there's a lot of worrisome red flags for why you shouldn't pick Gavin Tucker, but these are the reasons I ended up actually taking him. When you look at Diego Lopes, big, tall, quirky fighter, but how much is it recency bias from he looked like a goddamn house on fire against Movsar Evloev? He took the fight on super short notice, was the biggest underdog on the card, and then goes out there, slaps him silly in the first round, actually wobbled him and hurt him with his striking. Fight goes to the ground, and he throws up 1,000,001 submission attempts. It was some badass stuff. It looked like this kid, 28 years old, UFC debut, promising in a future. But again, there's a lot of warning flags with him as well. His takedown defense isn't very good. Yeah, he relies on these scrambles and, has a nasty leg lock game and has all this stuff, but he'll allow you to establish top position on him. When he was on the Contender Series against Joannis Brito took him down 3 times, pounded him from top, and dirty ending to the fight, but at no point did he really look good in that fight versus Brito. You give him a pass because he's 26 and it's Joannis Brito. Back on the regional scene, he goes, looks good, goes to a couple EBI invitationals, spends a lot of time working on his grappling, and then Movsar is not getting ready for this type of opponent. Movsar doesn't know what to expect. Movsar is a 6-1 favorite. There's not a whole lot of footage that he can base his study on, and there's not a whole lot of time to actually study his opponent. So part of that is Lopes catches him off guard in the first round. The rest of the fight, second and third, is him tired, hands low, getting countered all day long, giving up the easy takedowns, and then throwing up these flash submission attempts. Almost getting them. Movsar does a good job defending, and it's enough to persuade a judge anyways, but to get it right. He's tired. His striking becomes ineffective the longer it goes. You could chalk it up to a short notice, which is fair, but I feel like Gavin Tucker has advantages in this fight. First and foremost, he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he's got better wrestling, better offensive wrestling. I think he could force his hand and maybe score some takedowns. Once you're on top, you got to mind your P's and Q's, but I think he's equipped to do so. The fight stays standing. He needs to watch himself in that first round because A, he's a lot slower than he probably remembers. B, he's taking on a fast opponent. That's just gonna make it even worse. C, there's gonna be some ring rust for him, so he's gonna have to shake that off the first round. But if he survives that first round, eventually I think you're gonna see him start to find the mark, chop Lopes up, mix in some takedowns, and just play it safe. Again, I'm chasing plus money on this one with Gavin Tucker, and it would probably be like that PRP pick, maybe the bottom line before the PRP pick. And he's my boy, so like again, I think part of that is factoring into it. But yeah, I'm gonna take the governor to hopefully make a successful return to the UFC and get his hand raised.
What do you think of Diego Lopes 40.5 significant strikes? I mean, he got 37 against Movsar, and he spent most of that time off of his back. So if you think think Gavin Tucker can thwart, a lot of the submission attempts, 40.5 significant strikes seems pretty doable for Diego Lopes. So I don't mind that.
Yeah,
I've actually already added that to some tickets. Sorry, what?
The other thing that I will actually side on you, and it's part of the reason why I don't have a ton of confidence in the pick that I decided to go with. It's money, what can you do? But you saw Diego Lopes against Movsar Evloev. Striking looked good early. Submission attempts looked good pretty much throughout, but all that looked good early. But you keep in mind, he didn't really have much of a training camp. So for this one, if he shows up in better shape, unless he knocks Gavin Tucker out early, which is another possibility. Tucker, been off a long time, coming off bad knockout loss, an early knockout loss. So maybe that would be the only thing that thwarts you. But if this is a 15-minute fight, even if Tucker wins, that over probably hits.
Yeah. I mean, that Ricky Glenn fight for Gavin Tucker, like, I feel like that was a real transition
career
for his
changing.
career.
Career
He
changing,
took
for
a
sure.
disgusting beating in that fight. I just never really know what to expect from Gavin Tucker. Anytime he comes in, and then now he's coming in off of over a 2-year layoff. It's really tough to pull the trigger at plus 155. But I understand where you're coming from on a lot of points. Moving on down, we've got Tanner Boser taking on Aleksa Camur. Minus 145 for Boser, plus 125 for Camur. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, this is another fight that's hard to get a read on simply because, like, what's Aleksa Camur been up to lately? Here's a guy that joined the UFC pretty young, 23, 24 years old. He won on the Contender Series against Fabio Charan with a nasty flying knee. And I don't think it ever looked like he was a legitimate prospect by no means, but fun little fighter. He's also very young. He's a training partner out of Stipe Miocic at a strong style fight team in Ohio. Good things to like out of him going forward. He just never really made any improvements, man. He's super robotic. He stands in front of his opponents, and his cardio just not very good. His fight with Justin Ledet wins the first 2 rounds. Third round, I mean, he's busted up, and Justin Ledet is landing the better strikes. In fact, Joe Rogan is gushing about how he thinks Ledet might have actually won the fight on the basis of getting outstruck volume-wise, but landing the better shots. Camur seems like one of these guys on the regional scene. All of his fights, all his amateur fights, first or second round knockouts. The second round knockouts are usually 20 or 30 seconds into the round. His early first 4 or 5 pro fights, all quick knockouts. Fight on a Contender Series, second round knockout. This fight with Ledet's the first one that goes the distance, and he don't look comfortable, man. He loses that third round. Very next fight against William Knight, it's much of the same. William Knight forces his hand with the grappling a lot more, but keep in mind, for the first 7.5 minutes, the first round and a half, it's just them up against the cage for the most part. The last 7.5 minutes, it's Camur getting taken down 4 times. He tires out at the midway point, gets taken down 4 times, loses the decision to Willie Knight. His fight with Nikolai Negumereanu, the very next one, kills Negumereanu in the first round. 10-8 round. He looks so slick with his counters. Not slick, but just way slicker than Negumereanu. Moving to the outside, using his footwork, just beating his face off. Busts him up. Lots of damage. Probably a 10-8 round. Second round, you can see he's fatiguing. And all of a sudden, a simple guy like Nikolai, who's just moving forward and clubbing him, works his way back into it, steals the second round, wins the third round. Camur loses the fight. And now he's taken off 2 full years. So yeah, he's been injured. He pulled out of a John Allen scheduled fight with an injury. You got to be pretty banged up to be passing on a fight of that caliber. But yeah, 2 years. He's still only 27. I'm not going to say he's washed. It's just hard to gauge how good his improvements are. He wasn't really making that many improvements while he was competing actively. So it might be a bit of a stretch to assume he's just making that he's gotten that much better in the 2 years off, to be honest with you, especially while he's been nursing injuries. To say something like he's a training partner of Stipe Miocic, yeah, that sounds good, but how much does it really mean? How often is Stipe going to the gym and getting hard rounds in? How often is Stipe not? He's got a family. He's got millions of dollars. He's a firefighter. He's got nothing to prove to nobody. Like, how much are you really getting out of that relationship? And how many of the other guys in your gym are big enough to really push you? So I'm just not sold on Aleksa Camur in the slightest bit. The thing is that he can take one hell of a punch. He's pretty durable. And yeah, he's got some decent enough boxing. Tanner Boser is all volume. I think wins this fight down the stretch based on volume, but it's going to be a 15-minute decision. I'm almost certain it's a 15-minute decision, and I think it's just going to come down to what do the judges see. The early part, the first round and a half, it'll be Camur boxing him up. I think he lands some decent shots. He keeps Boser realistic. And also everybody knows the key to being Tanner Boser is to take him down. And I think this kid probably will say, hey, let me show you some of the improvements I've made over the last 2 years and mix in a few takedowns. He's tried to take down pretty much everybody. He does have a takedown against Willie Knight. That is something considering the stature of Willie Knight. I think he probably tries to take Boser down to at least test it out. At some point, though, if the layoff, that ring rust, the nerve, if anything catches up to him and his gas tank ain't up to snuff, and while we seen him competing years ago, it never really was up to snuff, then I think Boser keeps the fight standing, stays at the outside, and just leg kicks him all night. The more tired he gets, the slower he gets. Boser's generally got a pretty good gas tank. And yeah, I know he just got destroyed in his last fight against Ion Kudalaba. But Kudalaba is one of those 50-50 guys, man. Like, he's either going to be awful or he's going to be greatness. And against Boser, he was greatness. 205 is a better weight class for him. Hopefully you see the results of that in that fight. I'm hoping Canada goes 2-0 here. It's MMA. You can see them going 0-2. But I'm going to go down to the fights in Nashville. So, yeah, hopefully they go 2-0.
You're going down to the fights in Nashville.
Going down to the fights in Nashville. Yeah, absolutely. My buddy
only took you 40 minutes to reveal that to all of us.
Yeah,
I would have thought that was something that you would say off the top.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I meant to say it right off the top, but then you got doing the shoey and we got talking about Jan Blachowicz, Alex Pereira. Then we jumped right into the show. So I actually slipped my mind, but I'm leaving at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, we're recording the show right now. People will be able to see it tonight, I'm sure. And then at like 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm going to fly out. And for the record, I'm Canadian. We've got 2 Canadians on the card. I don't think there's a single guy from the state of Tennessee on the card, but there's 2 Canadians. And then here's the ironic part. Well, one guy, Gavin Tucker, it's a 16-hour drive from me right now to where he is in Prince Edward Island. 16-hour drive. The other guy, Tanner Boser, it's a 34-hour drive from me to Tanner Boser in Bonnyville, Alberta. But me to Nashville, 12 hours. Like, I'm actually closer to Nashville than I am to either of these guys that are on the far coast of me. So geographics, right? But yeah, Nashville is like a second home to me. I love it. My buddies Jeff Hobbs and Tim Lloyd, they're bringing me out for Aries Fight Series. This is called a Nashville Underground, right? So basically they do these cards. I'm hoping that they'll do them a little more, but once or twice a year, they'll put together like these grunge type shows. It's super cool, man. Hopefully you'll be able to check it out someday. But essentially, like, it's like Bully Beatdown in a garage type vibe, Def Jam Vendetta, dope ass setup, and it's in Michael Chandler's gym. So Michael Chandler's actually from Nashville. He's not going to be there because he's filming Ultimate Fighter right now, but it's at his gym that he owns, right? Dustin Ortiz is your boy, man, Scramble Master of the world. Dustin Ortiz is one of the head coaches there. It's a dope setup. It's a dope little spot. So they've got Aljamain Sterling's prospect there, Fumi Nakuda. He's a CFFC champion. He's fighting Cleveland McLean. Chris Ocon, who's on the Contender Series. Diedrich Sanders versus Kellen Van Camp. Dope scrap. So super nice little card. And it's on the Friday. So I'm going to fly out Thursday, which is my birthday, and then go to weigh-ins, check it out, do that shit. And then, yeah, go to the card Friday, call it, and then go to the UFC on Saturday. So I'm super pumped up for it.
Yeah, how the hell is Nate the Train not on every Tennessee show for the UFC?
The plan was to bring in Trevor Peak, who's actually from Alabama, but Peak had that Tennessee vibe, and he's like the adopted son of Tennessee, but he just took so much damage in that last fight. So he should probably rest and work on his skills and all that stuff. Keep your hands up, move your head.
And so did Nate the Train, in fairness. He fought, June 10th against Dan Ige, and boy, I mean, I was on Ige by knockout. And at the end of round 2, he almost knocked him out. And Nate the Train was just so damn tough. I couldn't even be mad. I was just disappointed. I'm going to side with Camur. The time off, the fact that he's still young, the fact that he's been fighting in this division for a long time. And I think you may have overrated, because you have people to see, people to talk to. You are much more in the MMA scene in Canada than I am. I think you may have overrated Tanner Boser's durability a little bit. The most significant strikes he's ever landed in any UFC fight was against Daniel Spitz on the Contender Series way back when. Hasn't been exactly the greatest run. Camur has eclipsed like 100 significant strikes, training with Stipe. Stipe's, finally back in camp, getting ready for a title fight. I'm going to lean ever so slightly to Camur, but I don't think I'm actually going to pull the trigger on an actual bet. So who's the real coward?
I will say
probably
this.
Me.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? I will say this: when you're Tanner Boser, it's like, man, he hasn't racked up any big numbers. It's like, okay, these are his losses, right? So Cyril Gane, super hard to hit. Andre Arlovsky, man, he should have won that fight. Total bullshit, but I think he respected him too much. But dude, Ilir Latifi, Rodrigo Nascimento, and then getting clubbed out quick by Ulan Kutalaba, they all just took him down and held him down. Like, that's his kryptonite. His guys that take him down and hold him down. And so far, all Aleksa Camur has done is just rock him, sock him robots. So you're not wrong for going Camur and getting that plus money. I think maybe let the first round go by and then take a live poke at Tanner Boser if Camur starts to gas and you can get closer to even. But this is just a greasy fight all around. Close fight, greasy fight.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you like Tanner Boser over
I will
57.5 significant strikes on Prize Picks.
That's because like anybody who fights Aleksa Camur is going to land. Yeah. Man, he's just there to get hit. He's going to hit you, but he's there to get hit. And then his cardio is just not good enough to hold up. So Boser's getting cut and Camur's getting cut. The loser of this fight's cut. I don't really see any way around the loser of this fight staying. Boser's on a terrible run. They've dropped down to 205, gave him a little bit of life, and he got smoked by Ion Kutalaba. If he loses to Aleksa Camur, it's over for him. I like the guy. I'd like to see him stay in the UFC, but they're not going to keep him around. And then Camur's lost his last 2 fights and been off for 2 years. So he loses to Tanner Boser. So what you're going to get is 2 guys that are desperate for a win, and that should lead to this over. Did you say 56.5?
57.5.
57.5. Yeah. Well, hopefully hit the over.
Hopefully hit the over. All right, let's move on. We've got Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Ludovit Klein, minus 225 for Bahamondes, plus 190 for Ludovit Klein. Who you like here, bud?
Yeah, so to me, it feels like Ignacio Bahamondes top ticket play, and then in thinking that, probably going to be way greasier than he needs to be, but I think he's got Klein's number. When you look at Ludovit Klein, again, we just talked about guys that are lower output, because you and I, similar eye in that regard. Ludovit Klein is super low output, man. Like, he's a technician. He looks to counter him with 1-2s, stays at the outside, nasty left high kick, a quick left hand counter shot, but he's not throwing in combinations, and he gets dog walked a whole bunch. Likes to fight off the back foot, likes to kind of play pretty and then mix in takedowns. No point. These are his fights. Goes to the decision with Trezano, 45 landed. Got subbed by Nate Landwehr in the third. He had landed 42. Devontae Smith wins a split decision. Should have been unanimous, but won a split decision over Devontae Smith, had landed 60. Mason Jones, which was his best performance in the UFC, had landed 50. And then his last time out, which might be one of his worst performances in the UFC against Jai Herbert, lands 47. So 60 is his career high in 6 UFC fights, and it's against Devontae Smith, man, who is obviously not with the promotion any longer. So it's hard to get behind Ludovit, because in Ignacio, he's going to fight a guy that lands on the reg 100 significant strikes. The last fight, he landed 99, but keep in mind, his last fight, he was coming off a year-long layoff. Who knows? The guy's got volume for days. He's got output for days. So it really does come down to the takedown defense. Can Ludovit Klein mix in the takedowns, force him up to the ground, and kind of hold some position? But again, he's kind of low output with that as well. He's taken down 1 guy in his last 4 fights. That was his last fight against Jai Herbert, who I'm not very high on. And he wasn't able to hold him down. The biggest problem, though, against Jai Herbert is that Jai Herbert's 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. And he just had no ability to break through to the inside. He gets boxed up by Herbert, loses the fight for no reason. A low blow, accidental. Why would anybody intentionally kick somebody in the groin? A bullshit low blow and foul for Jai Herbert leads to a point deduction, and that's what allowed him to get a draw out of that fight. Otherwise, most people, I think if you go on like MMA decisions, it's either, there's only 2 options, bro. It's the draw, or it was a 30-27 decision and should have been a 29-27 because of the point deduction. So again, Jai Herbert outstruck him in that fight, did a good job of getting back up, but to me, it was the reach and that height. Now, Ignacio Bahamondes is not a 77-inch reach, only a 75-inch reach, but he's 6'3", Paul. He has an 8-inch height, 8-inch height advantage over Ludovit Klein. So 6'3" versus like 5'7", that's going to be big. I think Klein's going to struggle to get to the inside. He's going to struggle with the constant volume, the constant teeps up the middle. If he does get a takedown, I think Ignacio Bahamondes is filling out this frame for the weight class. He's getting big. He's getting strong. Still only 25 years old. He trains out of that VFS academy, who gets in a lot of time with Bilal Muhammad over in Chicago. So I think the kid's a legitimate prospect, getting better. And again, I like what I see out of him. He can damage you. He can out-volume you. He's got heart for days. And even in that Roosevelt Roberts fight, 1 second left on the clock, he's still throwing spinning hook kicks. He's faced a little bit of adversity, some setbacks, but that's all good for business. So in this fight, I think he beats up Klein. The thing is, I could also see Klein staying to the outside, counter-punching, busting him up and making him bleed a little bit, being down on the numbers, but mixing in a few takedowns, making it close, surviving, and then all of a sudden am I biting my nails waiting for some closely contested decision? That's what I don't want. But if Ignacio does what he's capable of and Klein does what he's capable of, I think Ignacio is the better fighter. He wins this one.
Yeah, Ignacio is enormous for the weight
Huge.
class. And the question, as you said, it really comes down to is like, can Ludovit Klein secure a ton of takedowns here? Like he's the reach is actually kind of surprising between the two of them because you have 5'7" versus 6'3". And the fact that he only has like a 3 or 4 inch reach advantage is kind of surprising. But like Ignacio uses every little bit of his frame. And the volume is off the charts. Like on Prize Picks, 83.5 significant strikes. I mean, I already took at 81.5, like when it first opened. They moved it to 2 strikes, like whatever, it's 2 strikes. Like if this goes 15 minutes, I expect him to get close to 100. I think that's a half decent edge at the very least. Yeah, 99 against Trey Ogden, 126 against Rongju, 105 against Ro Roberts. It's like if we can get 3 rounds of action or at least 2.5 rounds of action, I think over 83.5 significant strikes is 100% in play. My only concern whatsoever with laying the minus 225 is maybe Ludovit, the Trezano fight, being able to secure 4 takedowns, win the fight that way. That's the only concern that I have here. Otherwise, I think Ignacio just beats him up, accrues significant strikes, and it'll be a pretty easy decision victory for Ignacio Bahamondes. So that's where my head's at there. Sounds like we're pretty much on the same page. Moving on down, we've got Jeremiah Wells taking on Carlston Harris. Jeremiah Wells minus 125 favorite. Harris can be half a plus 105. Who you like here?
Yeah, so I'm actually going with another underdog here in Carlston Harris. Again with Jeremiah Wells, like I'm not super confident in him. He's made his UFC debut. He's just shy of his 35th birthday, right? And he had been fighting for 10 years as a professional, and yet he had 10 fights under his belt. So he was never really active on the regional scene before he jumps into the UFC. And then since he's been in the UFC, the results have been in there, but there's some question marks big time in all of them. Big debut against Warley Alves, bomb rushes him, went I think 1 for 5 on takedowns in that fight, but just clubs him, puts him away. Nice little win. He was fighting at a pace that nobody could sustain, but it's his debut. He's on short notice. He went for it. Huge underdog. Got the win. That's dope. Then the fight with Blood Diamond. People will remember it as an easy Wells first-round submission. But again, Blood Diamond's doing pretty good in the striking exchanges, beating him up standing. And Wells goes, let me just make sure I get this 100% because I don't want to hurt him too bad. 1 for 5. 1 for 5 on takedowns against Blood Diamond. It's a really bad look, man. It's a bad look, but eventually does get him to the ground. He's a Gracie, Renzo Gracie, BJJ black belt out of Philly Renzo. Great gym, solid guy, former Paul Felder training partner. He gets the win over low-level guys. The fight with Cory McGee, he knocks him out before the fight even starts, really. But McGee, 40 years old, done at this point. His fight with Matthew Semmelsberger is the greasiest fight you've ever seen. So to this point, you've seen him smoke out Warley Alves quick. You've seen him struggle to take Blood Diamond down, but then get him down and smoke him out quick, and then smoke Court McGee quick. But like, what about a prolonged period? And that one's got tons of red flags. He gets dropped by Matthew Semmelsberger twice. Don't think his chin's all that good. Semmelsberger lets him off the hook. He got 6 takedowns on him, but it was all like him getting wobbled, him getting rocked, him getting a takedown, and then him just holding on top. 6 for 10 on takedowns in that fight. You saw Matthew Semmelsberger limitations, obviously, this past weekend. The only pick I got wrong. And what the biggest takeaway, not from the Wells fight, I didn't watch the Wells fight and think, geez, Matthew Semmelsberger is really not good. Watching that Euros Medic fight, dude, it was pretty clear. Matthew Semmelsberger is not really good. So for Wells, he gets floored twice. A bad judge probably jumps in there and steps it, or a bad ref probably jumps in there and steps it, stops the fight. There are spots where he's getting rocked. He's relying on these reactionary takedowns to force Matthew Semmelsberger down, and then mostly just lay and praise him. Over the course of 15 minutes, he landed 36 significant strikes, and that's actually his career high in the UFC because everything else is a quick finish. So to bet him as a favorite's not something I would feel great about. I would probably prefer to try to fade him. 36 years old for the record, and go the other way. Carlston Harris, also 36 years old. But man, there's a lot you can like about Carlston Harris. I liked him prior to coming to the UFC, whereas Jeremiah Wells fights 10 times in 10 years. Like, it's relatively low level of competition before jumping in. Yeah, not the case with Carlston Harris. This guy's a badass. Prior to coming to the UFC, he beat Jolton Luderbach, stud. He beat Michel Pereira, currently in the UFC. Wellington Turman, eventually made his way to the UFC. He beat Saigit Izagakmaev, who was 17-1 at the time, is currently 22-2, is an absolute stud of an animal of a man. Jumps in the UFC, has a win over Impa Kansanganai by first round knockout. He's a problem, man. Not only is he a problem, he's got a 77-inch reach on him, and he's super unorthodox with his striking. Comes out of Evolution Thai. They're known for that off-rhythm striking, off-rhythm beat. And with that 77-inch reach and the power he can generate, he clips guys. He hurts them. He's got a nasty front choke, again, because of the long-ass arms. Good anaconda, solid submission game, BJJ black belt. And whereas I'm not totally sold on his ability to fight multiple rounds, coming off a decision win over Jared Gooden, where his cardio held up. So this fight with Wells, both of their cardios are probably not great, but I would actually give the advantage to Carlston Harris. Both of them Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, slight edge to me towards Wells, but not enough so that he's going to hit a quick submission. And I hope he's just not going to lie him down. And if this thing stays standing and Wells struggles to take him down, the way he struggles to take Blood Diamond down, Carlston Harris is going to chop him up. And if you thought Semmelsberger had power, well, wait until Carlston Harris touches him. So I'm going to go with the underdog play here, and probably an inside the distance type of pick as well.
I like it, bro. I like it. I like where your head's at on that. Lot of steam has come in on Carlston Harris. This opened up at like minus 200 plus 170. And early action is coming in. I think it's kind of one of those situations where you have the wrong fighter favored. Yeah, the Semmelsberger fight was kind of a big eye-opener. I was on Wells there, but it's like at no point until they read the final scorecards did I feel good about that bet whatsoever. It was greasy. He was lucky to survive. Yeah, as you said, like lots of judges do not let you survive in that spot. And like, or not judges, referees. And like, if somebody stepped in a couple of those spots, like it would not have been, you know, people would have complained on Twitter because people always complain on Twitter, but it's like it would not have been outside of the realm of what we usually see on a week-to-week basis. So I think, yeah, a lot of the points that you say are well-founded, and Wells has shown that he can go 3 rounds, but it's like if you go back to like some of his regional level tape, it's like we've seen him like, you know, tire out when he really explodes early. So I like Harris, but maybe... You know, I'll take a little bit of Harris early. It won't be a big bet or anything, but it could be a good like live spot too. It's like Jeremiah Wells is super, super dangerous in the first 5 minutes. And then he kind of goes into like, you know, lay and pray and slows down a little bit in rounds 2 and 3. Like we haven't seen high intensity, hence the volume from him over the course of a 3-round fight in the UFC. So yeah, Carlston Harris for me as well. We got, sorry, I skipped over. My bout order went out of order. I think I'm going to blame the shoey for it. It's Kyler Phillips takes on your boy, Raoni Barcelos. Kyler Phillips is a minus 210 favorite. Raoni can be had for plus 180. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Okay. So on one hand, you've got my boy Raoni Barcelos, who I never go against. I did in his last fight. I was hoping he wasn't going to lose that badly, though. Woof. And I mean woof. But yeah, traditionally, I like Raoni Barcelos. He's extremely well-rounded. Again, 36 years old, fighting at 135. Going to catch up to you. Everybody's so fast in this division that some point, you know, you're going to start getting hit. And at some point, that durability is going to evade you. But yeah, his boxing is super technical, throws in combinations, tight guard. Could move his head, I guess, a little bit more, but has good footwork. 7-time member of the Brazilian national wrestling team, BJJ black belt, competition black belt, did well there as well. Very physically strong, always shows up in good shape. And really, until that last fight against a stud of a man and Nurmagomedov, yeah, had shown some solid durability. Questionable ring IQ at times. I think sometimes he has advantages over his opponents and he doesn't utilize them. Sometimes he should mix in an offensive takedown here and there that he just really won't. Sometimes he, not gun shy because his volume is pretty good, but almost just kind of stares at his opponents. So with Raoni's been an apple pie shitter at times for me. He lost to Timur Valiev and Victor Henry in fights he could have won probably, but fighting a bad game plan. The flip side of that, Kyler Phillips has got it all. He's got all the tools, but I think he's a prime apple pie shitter, just waiting to shit in the pie. And who better to go out there and knock off Kyler Phillips than Raoni Barcelos, who he himself has done it a few times. And that's what I'm going to go with, actually. So, again, Kyler Phillips is the complete package. Even now, he's only 28 years old. He's coming off a layoff due to injury, but he's still fairly young, and he's very, very explosive. He's out of one of my favorite gyms, the MMA lab in Arizona. Great coaching staff, Benson Henderson, former UFC champion, John Crouch. Very, very solid guys in the room to work with. Obviously, Sean O'Malley came out of the MMA lab. I think he still spends most of his time there. Solid group of guys to work with for sure in getting better. He's very explosive. He's very athletic. He kills distance like nothing. Has a very nice blast double leg from the outside. Big power. Nasty elbows from the inside. Moves well. Good-looking kid. Complete package. So what's there not to like about him? But then you see most of his fights generally end early. The fights that he can't finish early and adversity starts to pile up, he doesn't face it all that well. His fight with Song Yadong really looks good in hindsight, but at the time he's taking on a 23-year-old Chinese prospect who's yet to really work on that takedown defense. And he does win the first 2 rounds, but in the 3rd round, he gets outstruck 26-13, backing up the entire time, tired, curled over, loses the 3rd round to Song Yadong. So wins the fight, and again, that's a solid win, one that aged very well. But won the first 2 rounds using that explosiveness and that quickness and that big shot from the outside. But you could see the gas tank start to wear out. Then his fight with Rolian Paiva. So I lost a lot of money on that fight. He's taking on a flyweight, and it's a 10-8 first round. How could it not be? He absolutely murders Rolian Paiva in the first round. Kills him pillar to post. But then there's like a minute left the round ends. They go back to the stools. They come out for the second, and all of a sudden, geez, Kyler Phillips, he didn't look all that good. And Kyler Phillips' wrestling didn't really seem all that good. He gave up 2 takedowns to Rolian Paiva, a former flyweight. He bounces to the outside. He doesn't commit to any of his strikes. His volume falls off drastically. He loses the 2nd and the 3rd round. I even admit, and I had a lot of money on it, he lost the 2nd and the 3rd round. It should have been a draw because of the 10-8 first round. But they didn't give it a 10-8 first round, and they score the fight for Rolian Paiva. But here are the red flags there. 1, he just gassed out again, just like he did against Song Yadong. The later the fight goes, no good. He gave up 2 takedowns to Rolian Paiva. He didn't want to commit to any of his strikes, and it seemed like outside of that flash of brilliance in the early, there just wasn't any real substance there. So then you go to his fight with Marcelo Rojo. Yeah, not a great fight. Not a great fight. Looks good early, takes him down. But when Marcelo Rojo is getting back up to his feet, when he's scrambling and getting back up and beating you in the striking exchanges and moving you back in the 2nd round and takes you into a tight 3rd round where he does submit Marcelo Rojo in the 3rd round, not a good look. You know what else wasn't a good look? 3 for 8 on takedowns against Marcelo Rojo. He went 4 for 9 on takedowns against Rolian Paiva. He went, 3 for 5 against Song Yadong. Again, to me, that one was a while ago. He'll shoot a lot of takedowns, but it's not as if he's got effective quick takedowns smother you for the whole round. Like he scrambles too much. He moves too much. And what happens with these really explosive guys is the more you put that heat to them, they melt. And in his case, he melts, man. So with Raoni, who's a better wrestler on paper that Kyler Phillips has fought than Raoni Barcelos? Marcelo Rojo? Rolian Paiva? Cameron Else, Gabriel Silva, James Craig, get out of here, dude. He's taking on a guy that's got legitimate wrestling, that's taken on a bunch of scary Russians, and I think he's going to have problems there. Best grappler he's ever fought is Raoni Barcelos. Best striker he's ever fought. Again, you're taking a young Song Yadong out of the equation because it does look really good on paper. I think Raoni's the toughest guy he's ever fought. He's got 3-round cardio. He's got to fight a good game plan, but he's got nothing to lose. He's coming off a loss. He was supposed to fight Miles John, a month ago? Miles John pulled out, so Raoni, extended camp, but probably in good shape. And he's got to go out there and do his damn thing against Kyler Phillips. So I've got faith in him to get the job done. Plus money, I would give it a shot. But you're going to get way better plus money after the first round because Kyler Phillips is an absolute problem. And if Raoni's chin's still suspect, yeah, Kyler Phillips maybe melts him in the first round. But if it gets out of that first round, Raoni's going to work his way back into this bish.
You make a lot of good points there. It's really hard for me to argue against you on a whole bunch of that stuff. Kyler Phillips has some flashy techniques early, but we've seen time and time again when he tires out, when he gasses out a little bit, he relies on that wrestling. And outside of Hollaba, nobody has taken Raoni down. I mean, you talked about Raoni's. Sometimes Raoni doesn't lean on his offensive wrestling nearly enough as he should. But outside of that, it's nobody's able to take him down. Now, I mean, cousin Umar probably could have taken him down if he wanted to, but he didn't really, go after that. He's like, I'm just gonna knock this guy out anyway. Yeah, plus 180. I see it even like the market's growing a little bit. It's just like I could never see myself pull the trigger on minus 210 for Kyler Phillips. So clear dogger pass situation. Seemed like you had something to say.
Yeah, no, just you said it best. He's been taken down by one guy in his UFC career. It was his debut. It was 5 years ago, Kurt Holoba, and Kurt Holoba got 38 seconds of top control out of it. So, like, yeah, it's been good for him. And then maybe Umar Nurmagomedov could have taken him down, sure. Victor Henry's an excellent wrestler out of the Catch Wrestling Gym over in California, CSW, Josh Barnett and those guys. His fight with Said Nurmagomedov, as you said, should use his offensive wrestling more often. It's a 1-1 fight late in the third, and it's like, Raoni, what are you doing? Boom, gets the takedown. Could have done it all along. Didn't do it all along. But he won that fight, taking down a legitimate guy in Said that went on to some pretty solid things. So Raoni can do it. I know he can. He just got to go there and put it together. And I'm like his biggest fan. I don't think I've ever seen him live in person. So I'm going to go see him down in Nashville.
All right, we got Billy Quarantillo taking on Damon. I was watching Sadiq Yusuf's video, I believe, and he called him Damon, which was kind of funny. Damon Jackson. Quarantillo is a minus 180 favorite. Damon Jackson, it can be added for plus 155. I mean, I think this generally comes down to, like, we've seen Damon Jackson sometimes show up and he just puts an absolute hurt on you, which is definitely possible early in this fight. But it's like, this fight seems very, very much like a very typical Quarantillo fight. Maybe the round one is not too pretty, but it's like the guy just wears on you. I don't know if he's going to be leaning on any sort of, takedowns wrestling here. It's like that Gavin Tucker fight from way back when is a little bit concerning. It's like maybe Damon Jackson can employ that type of game plan. But over the course of 3 rounds, the type of volume that this guy puts on you is like there's very, very few people who can keep up with it. And Damon Jackson, from most of his career, I haven't seen, he's not going to like show up here and put on a knockout, like throw out a knockout like we saw with Edson Barbosa, which like Billy Q just wasn't ready for any of that. I like Quarantillo to win. Quarantillo maybe in the late markets, but Quarantillo over 72.5 significant strikes on Prize Picks looks ripe for the taking to me. What's your take here?
Yeah. Again, this is a fight where it's what version of the guy's going to show up, because both men at their best going to have a lot of advantages here. Billy Quarantillo, like you said, I think he's got the durability advantage. He's got the cardio advantage. He's definitely got the volume. I think he's got the speed as well. And then with Damon Jackson, yeah, he's fairly rugged, man. He's got decent takedowns, and when he does take you down, he's got some solid top control. But again, this is another good live betting opportunity because it's a fight I expect one man to win as it progresses, and that guy being Billy Q. Damon Jackson does have a lot of skills, BJJ black belt, decent enough boxing, but his durability isn't great, and you've seen some early knockouts from him. He's coming off a knockout loss to, a tough guy in Dan Ige, but all the same, a little bit older now at 34 years old, coming off a knockout loss, had some durability issues earlier in his career. He's probably going to look to wrestle and neutralize Billy. The thing with Billy, though, is that if you can take him down and neutralize him, that's sure. Well, sorry, taking him down, that's one thing. Lots of guys take him down. Neutralizing way harder because he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he scrambles, gets back up to his feet, and puts a pace on you. So if you're going to beat him, you probably got to beat him over 15. Unless you're Edson Barbosa, and you're going to soar like a goddamn glorious eagle through the air with a knee and knock him out. Aspinall Dariush about Edson Barbosa's knees. Yeah, okay, well, that could possibly happen, sure. But outside of that, like Shane Burgos landed like 162 on him over 15. Billy can take one hell of a punch. And so Damon Jackson, outside of a quick little flash knockout, I think he's going to have to fight him for 15. And the last time you've seen him kind of get extended, he took on Dan Argueta. Dan Argueta turned out to be pretty okay. But he took the fight on like 3 days' notice, up a weight class, lost the first 2 rounds to Damon Jackson, and then gave him hell, gave him heat, gave him everything he can handle. Damon Jackson survived that 3rd round. Man, not a real good look. And therein lies the problem. This guy's a guy, Damon Jackson, a lot of finishes, but he's had a lot of fights in the UFC. And these are the numbers. Him versus, say, Levon Makashvili went 3 rounds. So 44. These are just the fights that went the distance, I guess. But 44. Well, I guess Mursad, he subbed him in the third, but he landed 12 into the third round. Against Charles Rosa, went 15. He landed 41. Kamala Kirk, he subbed him in the second, 32. Dan Argueta, went 15, 32. His fight with Dan Ige, he had landed 36. But, yeah, he's low output. And if you want to talk about the Dan Ige fight, the first round, Ige, way faster, way sharper, doubles him up. The second round, Damon Jackson realizes there's a speed advantage, realizes he's losing, kind of goes YOLO and tries to force his hand. That's what leads him to get it caught and get knocked out. So to me, Billy is a guy that lands routinely over 100. Damon's a guy that's never landed more than like 50 in a UFC fight, and he's had a whole bunch of them. So if he don't knock Billy out quick, if he doesn't get that quick finish, 100% the work rate is going to get to him. And if he got tired against Dan Argueta, who's good, but is a weight class under and taking the fight on short notice, and you just basically held on to him, like it's not going to work against Billy. So again, you probably get a better live money bet on him after the first, after a couple minutes into the first, maybe when Damon Jackson holds his own early. But in a war of attrition, Billy Q generally wins, and I think he's going to do that here.
All right, we got Jake Hadley taking on Cody Durden. Hadley a -200 favorite. Durden can be had for +170. I think this fight really, can Cody Durden, is he the better wrestler? Is he able to control those exchanges? Because is he able to take and control Jake Hadley or take him down and control him? I mean, Nascimento is a super, super solid grappler all the way around. Being able to go 3 rounds with Alan Nascimento is a nice little, even though he lost that fight and, wasn't able to do all that much, just being able to hang out on the ground for 3 rounds is not a bad look for Jake Hadley, in hindsight being 2020. But yeah, Mitch Raposa was able to take him down twice on the Contenders series. Carlos Candelario was able to take him down 1 time. Obviously, just, Malcolm Gordon's going to do Malcolm Gordon things, and if he eats a big shot, he's going to go bye-bye. But Durden's got 11 takedowns against Charles Johnson last time out. I think a lot of the times we used to talk about this guy and we said that his cardio wasn't there, but it's being able to wrestle somebody, take him down 11 times over the course of 15 minutes, that takes a lot of energy, and he was able to do it last time out. If Cody Durden can take this fight to the ground, neutralize it, make it ugly, I understand why a lot of people move this line for -150 all the way to -200, but it's now that it's got to -200, I wonder if Cody Durden can keep this fight really ugly, get a bunch of takedowns, hold the fight up against the cage, and squeak out a really, really gross split decision victory here. So I'm interested to hear what you say. I'm leaning towards Durden right now. What's your take here?
Yeah, okay. So again, this is underdog city of a card, and I think Durden is one of those underdogs. I am going to take Jake Hadley, but I'll be the first one to admit it. -200 doesn't look super appealing. And I know I've said this about a couple fights, but 100% this is a live bet opportunity to get a better price on Jake Hadley after he loses the first round, presumably. And then I think he's going to beat Durden down the stretch. He's either going to beat him, maybe he goes to the body like he did against Malcolm Gordon. He's got way better boxing, way better power, way better combinations. If it stays standing for any period of time, he wins it. Mm-hmm. He's just got to make Durden work early and tire. And I think he's going to be able to do that. The other thing with Cody Durden is when he loses, it's he'll make 1 lapse of judgment, 1 mistake, and it costs him the entire fight. So, him versus Jimmy Flick, he allows Jimmy Flick to hit him with a flying triangle choke. And, there's 1 bad mistake. Him versus Muhammad Makayev, he gets shocked out the gate with the flying knee. He shoots a takedown, right into a guillotine choke. Those little spots of him losing by submission also lead me to believe that Jake Hadley's got a live opportunity to hit a submission prop. Jake Hadley's got 10 pro wins, half of them by way of submission. Triangle choke win over Carlos Candelario, 6 setup where Carlos Candelario shot the takedown right into the triangle choke. Nasty, nasty little setup. Only man to submit Carlos Candelario, who's fought some good guys. Went the distance with Tatsuya Taira. Very solid a submission defense from Candelario. And Hadley subs him pretty quick. 26 years old, still young, still getting better, but he's got a very quick, opportunistic submission game. He's got some nasty boxing standing. It's the takedown defense. It is a bit of a problem. Tagir Ulanbekov, against Alan Nascimento, taken down, control. That's the difference. Alan Nascimento has some takedowns, but he's got nasty top game, nasty control, high-level BJJ black belt. Cody Durden doesn't have that. Cody Durden takes Charles Johnson down 11 times because Charles Johnson got up 10 times. So the scrambles, all that work rate, making him work for another takedown takes you down. Hadley gets back up. I think the cardio favors Hadley. I think the striking favors Hadley. I think the submissions favor Hadley. The wrestling and that grit does favor Cody Durden. Now, Cody Durden, maybe he's got suspect cardio, but you're right. His last couple fights, he's digging deep. His cardio is looking a lot better. Two problems here. Problem number one, Cody Durden's taking this fight on short notice. So if he's not in excellent shape, which he's going to need to be to ground Hadley for the course of these 2 of the 3 rounds, short notice makes you a little bit worried. Thing number two, he's short notice replacing Tagir Ulanbekov. So if you're Jake Hadley and you're getting ready for a fight with Tagir Ulanbekov, Khabib's boy, Islam's boy, been hanging out in the mountains of Dagestan with these guys since he was a child, yeah, you knew you were going to wrestle, and you knew you were going to get back up, and you knew you were going to take this guy into deep waters, and you knew you were going to push this guy, and now they say, do you want to fight Cody Durden instead of Tagir Ulanbekov? You say yes. So, yeah, 2-1, I do not like. But tempted to get, a little bit daring and maybe go with the submission prop, but otherwise, Hadley inside the distance.
Hadley by submission. Let me just look at the market right now. Hadley inside the distance is plus 120. Hadley by submission. My God. Who's got it? Not that greasy. It's not as crazy as you think it is.
No, they're tighter on their submission props these days. They don't make it worth it.
They're tight on this one. It's because he had the submission against Candelario. It's best on market right now at the point of recording is plus 225. I could see it. All right, moving on. We've got Sean Woodson taking on Dennis Buzukja. Woodson, a minus 180 favorite. Buzukja can be had for plus 155. What a weird week for Sean Woodson. This is his third opponent just this week. He was supposed to take on Steve. That fell through. He's supposed to take on Myron Santos, who I actually watched a little bit of tape on Myron Santos, and I was just like, ooh, this looks like an underdog who has a shot, because Sean Woodson, super tall, and it's just the highlights and the videos I was watching on Santos is like, this guy just looks like a Brazilian Muay Thai leg kick specialist, and I'm like, those chicken legs are just asking to be kicked on Sean Woodson. But he had visa issues. Sorry, Butler was in between Steve and Myron Santos, and then
so this is his fourth opponent.
Yeah, so this is his fourth opponent in literally a week. Buzukja was on Contender Series, ended up losing to Melsick, was able to take him down a couple times, and then has went back to the regional scene, basically fought cab drivers. None of these guys that he's fighting have legitimate records or anything like that. Step up and in. We need somebody on short notice. Props to him. And Melsick has proven that he's a half decent fighter. So it's losing to him on Contender Series doesn't look so bad. So welcome to the UFC. And it's you look at Woodson's entire career, it's just everybody's been able to take him down. So if Buzukja, short notice, is able to step in here, put at least 2 of 3 rounds together where he's able to take him down and control Woodson, I think there's a path to victory there. I don't know if there's one that I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on, but I think Woodson could be exploited, and I'm not going to be doing anything serious with this fight until I see weigh-ins, because, Woodson against Julian Erosa came in. He's so big. He's 6'2", fighting 145 pounds. The Erosa fight, he came in 4 pounds heavy, obviously botched the weight cut, and he absolutely fell off of a cliff later in that fight. Ended up getting submitted. I don't know how many more times this guy can cut all the way down to 145 pounds, being as tall as he is. I feel like the path to victory is there for Buzukja. The biggest question that I have is he's taking this on such short notice. What type of shape is he in coming into this? The path is there. Lean on the wrestling. You're giving up so much reach and all of that. Is he going to be able to fulfill it? I'm not so sure. I'll pick Buzukja for the upset, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull the trigger. What's your take here?
Yeah, I got mixed feelings on this one. So with Sean Woodson, I've always been a fan of his, but yeah, he's there for the taking. He's there for the taking, and I just don't think you could ever classify this guy as trustworthy. And so if you're gonna get him as plus as a favorite, did you say a line on this fight? I didn't see one as a
Minus
recording.
180 plus 155.
Yeah, see, I was gonna guess 165 to minus 185 for Sean Woodson, but a lot of that is Buzukja has taken the fight on just a few days' notice. So I'm so tempted to take Sean Woodson. I really want to take Sean Woodson. The fight, this is the fourth guy, so like we haven't had a whole lot of time to look at it. But what I will say to you is Denis Buzukja, right? He's on the contender series against Melsik Bagdasaryan, goes out there. Bagdasaryan wipes him up pretty good. This kid's out of Sarah Longo fight camp. He's with Merab Dvalishvili. He's with Aljamain Sterling. He's with Matt Frivola. And yet, he's not much of a wrestler. Like, he wants to strike. In fact, when he loses, it's guys are controlling him up against the cage and taking him down. So, he does have a striking battle with Melsik, but unfortunately, he gets outstruck by the superior striker, loses the fight, so be it. Fights low-level guys in the regional scene. 1-2, 7-5, 6-4, back on the contender series. He won his second fight on the contender series, still didn't get a contract. So, this guy's been on the contender series twice. And at no point did he wow them enough to say, let's sign him. So back to the regional scene. And yeah, dude, much of the same. He fought 0-1 right afterwards, 9-5, 7-7, 6-4 his last time out. So now I'm going to be at the show on Friday, calling the action, right? Nashville Underground, looking for a 45er. Buzukja's manager throws his name in the hat and says, hey, you know what? We see there's 3 fights on the UFC card at 145. And someone could get hurt at 145, Dennis would be the guy. So we're going to put him on the Friday card, and he'll fight Friday. And if someone happens to one of the 45ers, he'd be good to fight Saturday. So like he's ready, good to go. Thing is that they offered him John DeJesus, who's a Bellator veteran, 16-11, and he flat out turned it down. Didn't want to fight. So didn't want to fight him. And then coincidentally enough, 2 weeks later, somebody did get hurt and Dennis gets the fight. So part of me thinks he's been training. The other part of me is thinking he didn't want to take a tough fight. Nobody he's fought outside of the contender series would be considered a tough fight. They've avoided most of the tough fights for him. He's 25. He's young. And being out of a grappling gym, he seems just way more confident striking. If he wants to strike with Woodson, Woodson has the edge on volume. Buzukja has the edge on probably like power. He is a good striker. Again, if you're hanging in with Ray Longo, you're going to get good. And I think he's got some decent power. But I would say 100% when given 2 options. One option was fight John DeJesus, tough guy, for $2,000. And if you lose, your career gets set back at least a year, probably 16 months, because you're going to have to win 3 more fights, getting 3 fights booked, opponents fall out, blah, blah, blah. Waste of time. Sets you back massively. UFC fight against anybody, who cares who's it's against, guaranteed $15,000, right? $12,000 show money, $3,000 from Venom, and a 4-fight UFC deal. Who cares if you get smoked? You still got 3 more fights on the deal. So this is like such a no-brainer for him to jump in there and take it. But is that because he's taking it because he feels ready that he can beat Sean Woodson? Or is he taking it because this is a great opportunity? No repercussion if I lose, I'll get a full camp. So I say immediately, and I seen the fight announced this morning because I wasn't out when I went to bed last night, but I got up this morning and I seen Woodson versus Dennis. I was like, oh, sweet Jesus. I'd probably be between 165 and 185 Woodson and probably take Woodson. But then, of course, you can't just go with your heart and your gut. Got to go with your eyes, baby. Woodson is just problematic, man. He's massively problematic. He throws a ton of volume, but he tires himself out because he doesn't have that one big hitter-quitter power. Knocked out Terrence McKinney on the contenders with a flying knee, but most of the time it's like jab, hooks, right hand, lot of slapping Diaz-style techniques, a lot of slapping you up from the outside, but he's not sitting down on a ton of his punches. As a result, he throws up sickening volume, but he tires out in pretty much all of them. You mentioned he gets taken down by everybody. He does. Every single one of his UFC fight, he's been taken down, except for the Colin Anglin one, which was just a quick first-round knockout against a guy that never won in the UFC and then didn't win afterwards either. So that fight, sure, it was over before it started, but everybody else has been able to take him down. Not a great look. Julian Erosa, he is a minus 500 favorite against Julian Erosa. Wins the first round, looks good. Tires in the second round, looks awful. Third round, curling over. Julian Erosa takes him down, dominates him on the ground, submits him. He's a 5-1 favorite. Julian Erosa mops the floor with him. Then in his last fight against Luis Saldana, He's a minus 375 favorite over Luis Saldana. Okay. Luis Saldana drops him. Boom. Quick little left hook. Woodson hits the deck. Woodson pops back up, and Saldana's smiling. He's got his hands in the air. His coaches are freaking out, man. They're freaking out. They're like, dude, you need to go after him. And he doesn't. And then Woodson looks like he shook it off, comes forward, and Saldana just hits him with one stiff jab. Woodson, boom, hits the deck. Second knockdown of the round. Now at this point, it's like he's done. Saldana comes running across the ring and just knees him in the face while he's on the ground. Immediate stop. They give Woodson longer than 5 minutes to recover, man. They gave him all the time in the world to recover, and they took a point away from Luis Saldana, who had otherwise absolutely killed him. The referee was also running in to stop it. It's just Saldana was faster and outran him to his crumpled opponent and smoked him in the face. Why? Nobody knows why. The main thing, though, is that Woodson got dropped twice. He got dropped hard. He's a 375 favorite again. Chin didn't look all that good. You said, how does he make 145? Excellent question. But being that big and making 145, not good for you. Not good for you, not good for your brain, not good for your punch resistance. So I'm not big on his durability. His takedown defense is no good. He's just got volume. That's it. That's all. He was able to come back and win the second and the third round against Saldana, but the second round super close. And honestly, he throws up a triangle choke. Outside of that sub attempt, you probably score it for Saldana, but close round. And then the third round, he comes through and he gets the win. Saldana's tired out. Saldana gets lost in the moment. And it's a solid enough win, but I just can't get behind him. If the durability is not there, the takedown defense is not there. You've had 4 different opponents, great, but like, who have you gotten ready for? Have you looked at one guy and been like, okay, man, we spent all night watching tape on Butler, and it's not Butler anymore? Who's it now? This Miro Santos, 23-year-old, 13-1 Brazilian killer? Okay, well, what's he going to do? Okay, leg kicks, leg kicks, leg kicks. That's a new game plan. That's a new plan. No, he's out. Now it's this other guy. That's going to mess with you. Do you go and you have that extra meal? Do you have that extra sip of water? Weight cut was already bad to begin with, and now you're throwing that additional stress on him. He's primed for the taking, baby. He is primed for the taking. And even though I may live to regret this, I'm going to take down his Buzukja.
All right. That was a roundabout. I didn't think you were going to land there. I thought you were going to end up on Woodson, but it is a roundabout way. I mean, you got Marab and you got Aljo. You can't overstate that. It's like Aljo's in the gym having a title fight camp right now. So it's like if Buzukja is there in the gym, like they are taking it serious right now. They call it Longo Weidman now. I guess Sarah Sarah has too much going on with his podcast and its stuff and looking for a fight to spend too much or be a namesake at that gym these days, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just like it's Kill Clef FC now, or it's Jackson Wink now. No. Those gyms were good the way they were, damn it. But yeah, no, he's in good hands. And then just to add like one little point to your point, Fumi Nakuda, the CFFC champion, out of the gym fighting on the Friday. Yeah, Aljamain Sterling's cornering him on the fight at the fights on Friday. He was already in town. The team was already in town. Dennis was getting ready, hoping a fight would land his way, and one did. So he's in a tough room. Yeah, listen, I do like Woodson, but I can never bet him as the favorite again. I just can't do it.
All right. Finally, we've got Assu Almabayev taking on Ode Osbourne. Minus 200 for Almabayev, plus 170 for Ode. I don't mind this Assu guy. I watched some of his fights on the regional scene. It's like some of his opponents weren't that bad in like M1 Global and stuff. Like you look at like some of their records. It's always tough telling with like some of these Russian cards. It's like, well, okay, well, he's 12-0 coming into that fight, but what does that really mean? Like they're fighting a bunch of guys with like next to no experience. But what I really did like from watching a little bit of tape is like I think his entries on his takedowns look solid. He looks pretty light on his feet. Like I think this guy looks like a very, very welcomed addition to the flyweight division. There's only a few books that have it open right now, but what I'm considering is Almabayev by submission. Best price right now is plus 300. I'm hoping to. There's a couple other books that tend to open up, and they usually have slightly better prices on those types of props. Almabayev, I've seen enough from like his takedown ability, his transition to the back looks super, super solid in some of his fights. I think, yeah, like, it's slightly juiced to the over 2.5. I wouldn't be surprised if Almabayev puts on a wrestling clinic here. Like, I really, really, really like his entries to those takedowns. It's going to be a little bit dangerous. It's probably a pretty significant step up in competition to Osbourne, who's a bit of a seasoned vet. It's not always that we see these regional guys come in, take on a guy with as many fights in the UFC as Osbourne, and they come in as the favorite, but like I think it's kind of rightful. Yeah, I like what I see from this Almabayev kid. So Almabayev by sub is my official pick. What's yours?
Yeah, I'm also going to take him. Don't know if I get to sub or maybe by decision, but my problem with these new Kazaki wave of flyweights is just like Zalgas, and names shouldn't escape me, but it's probably some crazy Kazakh name. Who was that other guy that fought like right after Zalgas got cut? Same bullshit. Close split decision win in his case. Close fight, contested fight, as a big favorite. They fight super subjective, and he's very much the same. He's got some wrestling, right? But it's all like big explosive moves. Shoots in, gets in tight, picks you up and slams you, German suplexes you on your head, and then not a whole lot of substance after that. Striking, yeah, very green. He can throw fast. He's got some speed, but he doesn't want to get in any type of big exchange. He doesn't want to fight for too much time standing. It's mostly hit you twice, shoot onto the inside. He's smashed pretty much everybody he's fought doing exactly that. But then he runs into Zach Makovsky. Now, Zach Makovsky, UFC veteran, rugged American fighter with American wrestling. And I think that's where you struggled with the wrestling. He did get a couple takedowns on Makovsky, struggled to do anything with it. The grappling exchanges were pretty close. Good fight. Split decision winner was Zach Makovsky. My opinion, nice. But one has to wonder, like, his striking is not developed yet, and his wrestling, although it's good, it's a lot of jump in, pick you up, toss you to the ground. Judges might like that, but if you're not doing a whole lot, not getting a whole lot of ground and pound, and O'Day's chopping you up standing, could be problematic. Could be a close fight, and I've got one guy making his debut against, a veteran of the division, O'Day Osbourne. Those are things that would definitely give me cause for concern. So then I was kind of thinking maybe I jump onto O'Day Osbourne, but here's the real key to me here, Paul, right? O'Day Osbourne, he's been offensive wrestling a lot more lately, right? You see that Charles Johnson fight. Johnson's beating him up from the outside. He's starting to strike with him. O'Day mixes in the takedowns. He's been trying to wrestle, I believe, more often than not lately. But look at the guys he's fought, right? He's fought Brian Kelleher, Armando Villarreal, Jerome Rivera, Manel Kopp, striker, CJ Vergara, crash the pocket in your face striker, Zaruk Adashev, pretty much a solely one-dimensional striker, Tyson Nam, super low output, big power, likes to strike, Charles Johnson, just a striker. So all he fights is strikers. And yeah, okay, he can mix in takedowns against them. This kid's not looking to strike with you. Maybe for a little bit. He's looking to take you down. And we've not actually seen O'Day against someone that does that. We've seen him gas with guys playing his game. We've not seen a guy throw him on his back, get on top of him, grind him up against the cage, keep a pace, keep that output, tire him down the legit way. I think this spells bad news for him. Again, good live bet because I think O'Day starts off good the first 3 minutes, 4 minutes, maybe the first round. And I think he just starts to tire. And then here's your little one extra bit that just lets you know that O'Day is not going to win these wrestling exchanges and therefore is probably going to lose his fight. Charles Johnson. O'Day Osbourne took him down 3 times, but Charles Johnson actually took down O'Day once, spent a minute and a half on top of him. Charles Johnson, in his UFC career, has been taken down 28 times, and he's only taken down one guy, one time, O'Day Osbourne. Yeah, he's 1 in 28 in the takedown front, 27 takedown differential. Yeah, O'Day's going to have some serious problems with this kid, so it's tough for a debut. He's a big enough favorite and the bright lights and this and that, but he's got a lot of experience on the regional scene, and as you mentioned, had fought some pretty decent guys in Russia, so I would say he just wrestles. Now, I'm thinking more of a decision, but what you said about the submission, yeah, it makes sense too, dude, because once he tires from all of these grappling exchanges, then it'll probably open up, and yeah, this kid might just snag a hold of that neck and put him away.
I liked his transitions to the back. Like, I saw that multiple times in the fights that I watched. And to defend Zach Makovsky, who did get submitted like a bunch of times early in his career. Like, we go back Last time he got submitted was against Dudu Dantas back in 2012. But like in his follow-up UFC run there, went to decision against Juicy Formiga. It's like, that's elite jiu-jitsu. If you're on the ground with Formiga, that's pretty impressive. Went to decision against Joseph Benavides. And then some like other Russian guys that he's going. So it's like, I feel like later on in his career, his jiu-jitsu game stepped up. He's 40 years old. He's definitely slower and not at the top of his game at that stage. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like ripe for the taking is Ode Osbourne, submitted twice, I believe, already in the UFC. He just hasn't taken on any grapplers recently. And I feel like Assu could definitely exploit that. Waiting for more books. There's only, the plus 300 is the best on market. Maybe I'm getting a little bit greedy by waiting, but I'm hoping somebody opens up even slightly better. If it ends up being that plus 300 is the best price, I'm still going to take it. But, I'm running the risk that a couple other books that usually do open up props a little bit wider will give me a slightly better price. But that is mostly it for us this week. Except for Cody Saftic, you got to hit him with the PRP.
Hit him with the PRP. We're going to go with Cory Sandhagen, Tatiana Suarez, Dustin Jacoby, dog number 1, Gavin Tucker, dog number 2, Tanner Boser, Ignacio Bahamondes, Raoni Barcelos, dog number 3, Carlston Harris, dog number 4, Billy Q, Jake Hadley, and Assu Almabayev. I thought I had 5 underdogs. Doesn't matter. 4 underdogs anyways. I could see myself taking Aleksa Camur, but honestly, there's just no information or footage, or those are the greasy fights. So yeah, that'll end up at the bottom. There was a couple that'll end up at the bottom. But yeah, the main thing is that it looks like it could be an underdog heavy card. So for parlays, it's all about who you take that's trustworthy at the top. And I haven't quite got there. Ignacio Bahamondes jumps off the screen to me as somebody that I'd like to put up. Cory Sandhagen, because it'd be an easy hedge out, but you're not even getting even money with those 2 picks. So I got a little bit of figuring out to do. But luckily for me, I got nothing to do till my plane leaves at 4 a.m. So yeah, I'll keep at it, hit the right combination, hopefully go out there. If you are in Tennessee, come out to the show on Friday. Like, come to the UFC, dope, but if not, come out to the Underground show on Friday. If you want to get up for a beer, if you want to meet up, whatever. But if you also can't make it out and you're in Tennessee, go to spectationsports.com. You can actually join up there, bet on these underground Nashville Underground fights, which will be a great time. And then you got the UFC. So unfortunately, Canada, not quite with Spectation, and little Cody doesn't have a U.S. citizenship, so I can't sign up in the state of Tennessee. But if you're in the state of Tennessee, let's make some money, baby. If not that way, at the UFC Nashville card. So I'm pumped up. Tough fights to call, but they're all entertaining fights. And as we talked about, every underdog's got a chance. So it'd be an entertaining, fun, nice summer night in the Music City. But yeah, I would love to hit some parlays like we did last week and keep the momentum going.
And the the prize picks plays that I like the most. The 2 that are my favorite would be Ignacio Bahamondes, more than 83.5 significant strikes. Like, the guy crushes 100 in most of his fights. Klein slows down the pace of a lot of his fights, but I think it's very, very ripe for the taking. Quarantillo, more than 72.5. I like that Suarez less than 40.5 significant strikes, and I like her under 2.5 takedowns. The other 2 I like a lot more, but like, I feel like Suarez is gonna stick to that takedown super, super early. And it's like, I don't know. I think I may be very, very biased, but I think she's gonna snatch up a submission pretty early. Diego Lopes over 40.5 significant strikes. If Gavin Tucker can survive all of the submission attempts from Lopes, they're going to be on the feet some extended periods of this fight. I think that's definitely in play. Otherwise, yeah, it seems like pretty slim pickings. But yeah, definitely reach out to Cody out there. Maybe, you'll be able to bet there. Aren't you able to bet there? I've never been in Nashville.
I've been in Nashville a couple times.
You're not able to bet there?
You can bet there, but you can't bet. Like, my book isn't legal there, so like I can't access the domain. I can change my VPN, I'm sure, do it that way. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't had success in that. in the past with it. I think they can bet. I think a lot of them play DraftKings. That's legal there as well. But I'm not sure. There's no casinos. You can't go to a casino. There's like none of that exists. Yeah. Like when people say like what's Nashville like, it's just like Vegas, less gambling, way more country music. But like it's a music scene. There's a great vibe. There's a lot of cool people. You got that like Southern hospitality. Vegas, they're all degenerates or just gambling, and those are kind of like more my people. But the first time I went to Nashville was awesome. I ended up going there on my honeymoon like 6 months later because I enjoyed it so much. And then when I saw this card jump up, I kind of messaged them. I'd be open to coming out. They were like, you know what? Let's have you do the play-by-play on it. So everything did work out. But I love Tennessee. I love the Southern United States.
So if you live in Tennessee, particularly Nashville, Tennessee, and you happen to be going to those fights, you may or may not be able to allegedly help Cody out. If you're an honorable person, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Maybe he'll release PRPs to you in advance when he gets back home. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that the opportunity to network and become buddies with one of the legends of picking fights would potentially maybe be there, if you catch my drift.
And just like a Where's Waldo situation, if come find me, and if you do find me, I do a shoey for you right there, then and there, baby. So yeah, no, I'm excited to mingle with the people, but also yeah, enjoy myself. Go see some live fights, live UFC fights. I see live fights entirely too often, but live UFC fights that I don't have to work, sweet. Yeah, man, I'm pumped up for it.
All right, that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed this show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.